Now, the Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, says the government's 2022 budget is targeted at empowering Ghanaian entrepreneurs and the business community. But some startups and small business owners in Kumasi say they are worried the 2022 budget will rather stifle the growth of the industry. We'll hear from the budding entrepreneur shortly, but first let's listen to Ken Ofori-Atta announce the youth starts to support young entrepreneurs to launch and operate their own businesses in Parliament.
We will address the challenges our existing and aspiring entrepreneurs face. These challenges include access to credit and finance, regulatory and tax burdens, lack of skills, as well as mentorship. We will do this whilst intensifying our efforts to support the private sector to expand and create jobs. Mr. Speaker, this understanding of the youth employment challenge, as well as extensive consultations of stakeholders, including youth associations and educational institutions across the country, have led to the development of what we call the Youth Start Initiative. Youth Start Initiative, which proposes to use 1 billion Ghana cedis each year. Proposes to use 1 billion Ghana cedis each year to catalyze an ecosystem to create 1 million jobs, and in partnership with the financial institutions and development partners, raise another 2 billion Ghana cedis over the 3-year period. In addition, Mr. Speaker, our local banks have agreed to a package that will result in increasing their SME portfolio up to 5 billion Ghana cedis over the next 3 years. This, Mr. Speaker, results in an unprecedented, historic 10 billion cedi commitment in the next 3 years to the private sector and the Youth Start program over the next 3 years.
And you heard the Finance Minister on the Youth Start initiative. Meanwhile, my colleague from the Ashanti region, Prince Apia, spent a moment with a young startup on the budget and brings us this report.
The 2022 budget statement and economic policy had a theme: building a sustainable entrepreneurial nation, fiscal consolidation, and job creation. This meant that it is supposed to create an economic environment conducive enough to enable businesses, especially startups and entrepreneurs, to thrive. In a jiffy, I'll be speaking to an entrepreneur to understand what this particular budget means to him and his business. This is Kofi Asamoah, a young businessman who has invested in the sachet water business in Kumasi when he moved back from his base in the United States of America. He was hopeful of a reduction in fuel prices because of the impact on his business.
We deal in production and transportation, so it does really affect our business because as a couple of weeks ago, we were buying about close to 2,000 for a week. Now we're doing almost 3,000. But then the products, we are still selling at the same price. We're looking for some reliefs so it can reduce our operational cost or expenditure, but nothing came up, and I'm really, really disappointed.
Among the few revelations from the budget was the introduction of the 1.75 e-levy on Momo and other electronic transactions. Mr. Samoa is worried this will affect his operations.
Now it looks like we have to resort to cash and checks because we are going to have to pay extra when we do electronic transactions. I do Momo transaction like 5,000 a day, close to 10,000 at some point. So I'm going to pay 1.75 or a levy on it. I'm going to save money, especially if I'm paying too much for fuel already, and there's already other taxes going on with it. So I think it defeats the idea of promoting electronic transactions per the vice president's digital whatever that he's trying to do. It's actually going to make me not do electronic transactions.
So 1 billion Ghana cedis every year for a period of 3 years meant to boost and capitalize the SME startup ecosystem. That's under the new initiative, the Youth Start initiative announced by the Finance Minister during the budget presentation. But already there are concerns about access to funds from initiatives like this.
It's huge as a policy to try to empower entrepreneurs. However, how to access the money, it's a problem. Because most of these things, when the government structures something, it's going to be politically motivated. If you are not part of the government or know somebody in government, you will not be able to access these facilities. Talking to the banks to increase portfolio for SMEs, yes, good policy, fantastic. However, if you give me 1 million cities and you expect me to pay that money in a year, how am I going to pay you? If you give me 100,000 cities for me to pay in a year, you're taking almost 11,700 a month. So I can complete the payment in a year. How am I going to pay it? So those are some of the things they should look at.
With a staff of more than 20 people, he is unable to increase their salaries due to the continuous rise in operational costs.
Employees are looking for increments in wages or salaries, and we are not able to do it because there's increment in fuel prices. We have not been able to increase prices of products because we're looking at it's a product that basically goes with the people who can afford luxury. So it's not something that you can really increase prices easily. It's just going to reduce the profit margin. And I'm ready to bear it because my employees they're not supposed to be responsible for that.
The 2022 budget has benchmark values abolished, road tolls scrapped, and withholding taxes reduced to 1.5%. Are these positive enough for business owners like Kofi Asamoah?
It's like robbing Peter to pay Paul. Put a lot of taxes on fuel, and then you decide to reduce the tax on withholding tax. Individually, it's good that there has been a reduction, but generally, it's still the same.
Kofi is among the many Ghanaian businesses who had expected more in the 2022 budget. Prince Apia reporting.
Well, Sheriff Gali is Chief Executive of the Ghana Chamber of Young Entrepreneurs. He joins us with some reaction on the You Start initiative. Sheriff, we're grateful that you could join us. For starters, Sheriff, the name You Start sounds very cool, but are you sold on it yet? It speaks of training, funding, access to competitive credit, and enterprise promotion.
Yes, thank you very much, Charles. It's something that we have taken a look at as a chamber, and it reflects our inputs, our call for support for young entrepreneurs. So it really sits well. And we can say that for this time, the government or the ministry have gotten it right on supporting young entrepreneurs with the Youth Start initiative. So yes, it's something that we are in for. And we are glad that finally we have an initiative like this. Now we will be talking about the implementation and how exactly we are going to make sure this works.
Well, but the initiative proposes, about 1 billion cedis each and every year to catalyze an ecosystem to create 1 million jobs. They're getting to increase their SME portfolio of banks up to about 5 billion over the next 3 years and easing the tax burden. Is this far-reaching enough for entrepreneurs?
No. It is that exactly what we are looking for, that a fund should be set up that young people should be able to access this funding. And the minister has indicated that 1 million fund for each year for 3 years, that's exactly what they are going to do. And I kind of like how it's being segregated. We have the district level loans, we have the startup loans, we have the SME support to the banks that will empower them to be able to give loans. So yes, Charles, I say that this one, they really got it right, and it is as how we want it to be. I'm sure what we should be talking about is how the implementation should be done, and that's what the chamber has to say.
In fact, we shall be looking forward to the post-budget discussions to get, a clear understanding of how this is going to go. But Sheriff, let's also have this discussion on the e-levy, because you rightly heard from Prince Apia, our correspondent from Kumasi, speak to an entrepreneur who raised serious concerns about the rippling effect that this could have on his profit margins. How are entrepreneurs from the chamber responding to this entire implementation of the e-levy system?
That we actually decided to break down the budget and for our members to understand and make their comment. I would say that as it stands now, we are still getting comments from our members, but it's divided. I can say about 50% of our members think that, well, if government is going to set a youth start with that amount of money, where do we expect the government? We need to be honest sometimes. Where do we expect the government to get the money from? So taxing us, because this is directly targeted at we, the young people. Why do I say so? Because we use the mobile money. We are more or less using the electronic payment than any other person. Our online engagement, selling online.
Exactly.
And almost so the young people are the people using it even more than any other person. Most of these industries, big industries, use their checkbooks and all those things. So yes, it's going to have an effect. But you see, we are a chamber that do not only promote support for our members, but also look at how our members can also support the development of our nation. So if the government is willing to part 1 billion every year to support us and allow us access credit that we've been crying for. So what is wrong with parting? Also parting something to support the government in way of e-levy. So as it stands now, the chamber is not against the levy, neither are we for it. We are not for it in the sense that we are saying that the government should not just blast the 1.7% on us like that. It is too harsh. Very, very harsh to just blast the 1.7%. We are saying it should be incremental. Government should really reconsider this. So maybe as this year or next year as we start, 0.5%. And as we grow, then maybe it can be increased. But just the 1.75 is our problem. Aside that, for us as a chamber of young entrepreneurs representing the mouthpiece of young people in business, we do not really think it's too much an issue, because we need to find a way of supporting the government to support us. And if we is parting away something to support the government, why not? We are in for it. But then it's too high, starting with the 1.75%.
Indeed, Sharif, we're grateful that you could join us with your input. He's the CEO of the Ghana Chamber of Entrepreneurs, helping us understand and appreciate the thoughts of entrepreneurs on, first of all, the e-levies system, as well as the Youth Start policy that government intends to implement. But still on other issues related to business, government has given the assurance that the proposed revenue measures outlined in next year's budget will help address mobilization challenges. The country has in recent times struggled to raise the required revenue to finance government's expenditure, leading to concerns about recent policy measures proposed to address the revenue situation. But the Minister of State at the Finance Ministry, Charles Edubuahin, insists things are going to change with the new tax measures, which include the e-levy. Take a listen to him.
With an e-levy, everybody has a mobile phone, everybody has access to the internet or uses, one of these payment platforms. So you circumvent or you leapfrog that need for that kind of infrastructure that the Western countries have to be able to enforce your taxes, and use a digital platform which actually allows you to be able to do this without the need for putting in place any additional major infrastructure, because you can do it without actually having to set up more offices and so forth and so on. You just set up a digital platform which can be managed remotely, and before you realize, you are able to collect effectively. See, and it also is very transparent, so you know exactly how much you're collecting. The probability of leakages is very minor, and so it becomes a very efficient way to do it.
Oh, no, but there are concerns that we want to encourage people going digital.
Yes.
Any form of levy or tax could be a disincentive. What do you say about that?
To be honest, we started looking at this 4 or 5 years ago. And that was the concern at the time. And we really appreciated it because it made a lot of sense then. At the time, if I remember rightly, 5 years ago, 2017, 2016, total value of transactions on electronic platforms was about under 75 billion cedis. Today, last year, the area ended at 500 billion. This year, projections are putting it at somewhere about 800-900 billion of transactions. That shows you that we've had 10%, 10 times growth in 5 years. That's phenomenal growth. If you look at also the number of mobile money subscribers, essentially, we are now at about 17 million mobile subscribers. In fact, the growth of mobile subscribers has got to the point where now you can see the penetration. That tells you that this is now a mature market. It's no longer a startup where it is an option. It's almost become a way of of life. In fact, when you ask most people, they'll tell you that now they're more likely to send money on a digital platform than give somebody cash or write a check. Checks are almost dying, and so we feel certain that given the convenience that this provides, digital transactions provide to everybody, the payment of 1% or 1.75% on a transaction will not deter them from this, because it's still cheaper for them to send money to their carpenter or to their help or something in another town than to take a taxi or take a car, pay for fuel and go through that journey and the time spent. So the convenience factor that we have by being able to do digital transactions cannot be underestimated.
You're still watching The Marketplace. Still to come in the bulletin, the Greater Accra Poultry Farmers Association welcomes government policy prescription for agriculture and the poultry industry, but wants the reversal of the benchmark value policy to have affected poultry imports. We'll hear from the association on the reason why. Do stay with us. Now, the Greater Accra Poultry Farmers Association has welcomed government policy prescription for the agric and poultry industry. However, it hopes that the reversal of the benchmark value policy on some items would have affected imports of poultry products. Member of the association, Michael Nyako Ampim, tells Joy Business that the current price of raw materials for poultry feed is also expensive, and therefore government should support the industry to bring down the price. He joins us via Zoom. We're grateful that you could join us. How worrying is the situation as we speak?
For the opportunity, it is worrying because cost of production or cost of doing business has gone up dramatically. And, what it does is that it impacts negatively on the business that we do and how sustainable the business will be. So it is quite a serious issue.
Of course, the association has made the case that, yes, benchmark values, its reversal was laudable, but why didn't government consider the importation of poultry as part of the items, right? Why this particular concern when there are other, doubts about the association's capacity to meet demand, especially when we're headed towards the Christmas season?
Thank you. The issue is not about meeting demand. The issue is about market or availability of the off-taker. So if there's an off-taker, growing broiler, it's just about between 6 weeks and 8 weeks. So if there is enough market, say whatever production that we have now, which is about 10% or maximum 20% of the total market space, if the government gives us extra 30 by limiting the import that is coming, or give us extra 40 by limiting the amount of import that is coming in, this gap can be filled. It's just that the what is coming in is subsidized and is cheaper than what the cost of producing birds here. So if we can correct that fundamental problem, all right, that benchmark, if it's done, it will help us.
So help us understand, where do you want, the roadmap to be, especially when we're about to have a post-budget discussion?
I would suggest that government wants to put in 5 million birds through the broiler revitalization program, which is laudable. However, we need to have not just the 5 million, we need to have a lot more people doing, because the handouts is not sustainable. Because if you give somebody birds today and the person is not able to sustain himself subsequently, then the person becomes a burden on the government. So we are saying that rather create a space for us where we can sell the birds and then reduce, not necessarily eliminate imports, but we say reduce the importation of the frozen birds, and then we can take it up from there, and then we'll fill the gap. And it's easy to do. So post-budget discussion, what we are suggesting is that government should create space for the farmers to build themselves. The farmers are resilient. They are ready to scale up their production, and they will do it.
We're grateful that you could join us with your inputs. Michael Nyako, MPM, is member of the Greater Accra Poultry Farmers Association, helping us there with their thoughts on the budget. Well, the Ministry of Trade and Industry is expected to hold a crucial meeting with the leadership of the Ghana Union of Traders Association over the 50% and 30% benchmark values, which government has just reversed in the budget. Confirming this to Joy Business, President of the association, Dr. Joseph Obeng, explains that this meeting will be factored into discussions ahead of the post-budget debate in Parliament.
Already, I've been in lengthy talk just after the budget with the Deputy Minister of Trade responsible for our sector, trading. And she has indicated that she is going to meet with us ASAP to start this engagement. And so we are not joking. We wouldn't just sit down for anything to be imposed on us, never. So we'll talk through. And we also understand issues. We know how the manufacturing industry also require. We know what government also need, even in terms of revenue. But it shouldn't be said that they are doing all this against one sector, that they do not care. They should also care for us, because we are all a major stakeholder and we are in distress period, that they should understand our plight. Care should be taken that when we reverse the benchmark value, duty is going to go up. Already the final consumer is overburdened. They are not buying. The turnover is not there. So if we increase again, the pot might be empty in the coming year. And then you have targeted that because you've increased the tax, you are going to have your worth, and you will not even get your target, meet it. And so we have to put everything on the scale, weigh them, and see how it will balance up for all of us. And that we should also think about not doing anything for us to also feel that we are not even part of the schemes of affair in this country. The common trader is very pathetic.
And of course, these are our top business stories on the marketplace. But for more news, please log on to myjoyonline.com, where you can get updated on all business trends, also politics and sports, to get you much more, interested in which particular areas of investment you might want to consider yourself as a business leader. We're grateful once again that you could join us on the marketplace. Join us same time tomorrow. Enjoy the rest of our programs.